We got some major breaking news that just got reported as it has been officially announced that Kaulig Racing has won their appeal with NASCAR. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. As I just said a second ago, Kaulig Racing had their final appeal earlier today, and they have won that appeal. It has been announced that Kaulig Racing has got its points back on its final appeal of the Phoenix penalties. NASCAR requested a change be made during the hearing, so the penalty is now the same as the Hendrick teams, $100,000 and a 4-race crew suspension. But the big thing is all the playoff points and 100 points have been rescinded. Penalties have been rescinded, and they have received their penalties back. Here is the statements that have been released. So Bill Moles, who was part of that finals appeals office, because remember, Kaulig Racing only had initially gotten 25 of their points back, and they had 75-point penalties still. But now they'll have the same penalty that Hendrick got, which of course they got all their points back. Meanwhile, they still have the fines to pay. Here's what Bill Moles had to say. He says, statement for finals appeals officer Bill Moles. In the interest of fairness, NASCAR has requested that I remove the driver, owners, race, and playoff penalties from the penalty to Kaulig Racing. I have agreed to this request per the rulebook. During its opening remarks, NASCAR stated it believes that the violations did occur. The penalties were appropriate and the 3-person appeals panel ruled correctly. But because the Kaulig infractions closely mirrored that of Hendrick Motorsports, modified Lubers at Phoenix Raceway, NASCAR requested I rule in the same manner as the 3-person appeals panel following the Hendrick Motorsports appeal on March 29th. The information I heard in the room this morning created an overwhelming and unique circumstance. In fairness to the team and sanctioning body, as NASCAR documented in its remarks, this request is fully in the interest of fairness and consistency, and I agree. Then NASCAR also later released their statement in the situation as well, and they say NASCAR believes that Kaulig Racing committed the violations documented in the penalty notice, that the penalties were appropriate, and the 3-person appeals panel ruled correctly while hearing the Kaulig appeal on April 5th. However, in the interest of treating all competitors fairly, NASCAR today requested that the finals appeal officer remove the race and playoff penalties from the penalty. The Kaulig and Hendrick Motorsports violations involved the same modified part found during the same race weekend, modified Luber at Phoenix Raceway. And with the fairness and consistency top of mind, NASCAR requested that the FAO match the final Hendrick Motorsport penalty. NASCAR believes that the updates made to the rulebook will address similar issues in the future, keep its promise to the owners for strict penalties when single source parts are modified. We are pleased with the swift resolution to today's appeal. Appreciate Bill Moles' ruling and now look toward to this weekend's events at Talladega Superspeedway. I want to get my take on the situation. I 100% agree with the ruling, and I think it's absolutely fair because if you're going to give Hendrick Motorsports all their points back, where they got all 100 points back for each car, and all their playoff points handed back as well, you got to do the same thing for Kaulig Racing. I 100% agree with this. I thought it was completely BS when it was announced that Kaulig only at the time got their 25 points back, that they only got the points back that they had received. I thought that was a load of BS. I think this is 100% the right call, and I think NASCAR and the appeals panel did a great job right here, giving the points back. It's the same penalty, and like I said, I think this is absolutely 100% the right call in a situation. NASCAR, I think this was fair, because at the time, like I said, at the time, I thought it was a load of BS that they got only a certain amount of points back, and they should have gotten all their points back. If Hendrick gets all their points back, that's what it should be. But and again, I think NASCAR agrees, and I agree that if you violate the rules, you should get penalized. But it's got to be fair, and I 100% agree with the call. I think NASCAR and the appeals panel did the right thing right here to give it back. Now, going forward, when it comes to the situation here, this is something that will 100% be preventable going forward, because remember with the upcoming appeals that do end up happening, if appeals end up going forward, you can only go to a certain amount of those rules. But with Kaulig Racing and Hendrick Motorsports, they were part of the old group of appeals before these new rules came into effect. So in the future, if the situation does end up happening, once again, if Kaulig Racing does get another 100-point penalty, they can only go to the lowest amount or the highest amount of the L2 penalties, which I believe for the L2, I think it's 75 to 120 points. For an L1 penalty, I believe it goes from 10 or 15 to 60 points, if I'm not mistaken. And for L3, which would be an extreme violations, it would go from like 150 down to like 300 points or something like that. Something in those areas is what those penalties are going for. I'm glad to see that they have addressed the situation head on, and I think that this is absolutely 100% the right call right here. You want everything to be fair, and you want it to be absolutely fair. You don't want one penalty to basically be different than the other penalty, and I'm appreciative that Bill Moles and that team did the right thing. Remember, the Independence Appeals Panel is different than NASCAR running it, and I'm glad that NASCAR agrees. Again, I think that it's an absolutely right call, 100%, and I'm glad that we can talk about something positive in the sport. Again, I think there's been a lot of issues with these appeals. I'm glad that they've addressed it going forward. They made some huge rule changes, and while you don't want it to happen in the middle of the season, I think this is absolutely the right call right here. I'm glad the NASCAR made the decision right here, and overall, like I said, I think this is 100% the right call that NASCAR has made. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to see that NASCAR has made the right call in this decision. It's the right call, and I absolutely deserve that. The penalties to basically be rescinded, because again, I think Kaulig Racing should not get a different penalty than Hendrick Motorsports. It should be consistent, it should be fair, and NASCAR 100% was fair in this situation. So that is going to be today's NASCAR news special report. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, notifications on so if I win a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links go below with that, and comment your thoughts below on today's video. Do you think NASCAR made the right decision here, and do you think it's a fair call to give all the points back to Kaulig Racing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, we are going to have a NASCAR news video on the channel. We'll probably do a little more follow-up on this Kaulig Racing news story, among other stories on the channel. Then on Thursday, I'm going to have a special video on the channel. It's probably going to be 2024 NASCAR schedule predictions. I'm not entirely sure yet, but that might be the video coming out on the channel. Or it could be drivers who I think should be in the top 25, the rest of drivers who should be on the list of the top 75 greatest drivers of all time, or my 25 that I add to the list. Then on Friday will be a NASCAR news video on the channel. And of course, Saturday we'll have the NASCAR Xfinity Series race review, depending on if the weather is good or not. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.